This week, we are talking about schooling at home or homeschooling, and Sarah created this training and will be presenting it to you today. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping stuff first. So we'll start with Sarah. Sarah is a registered behavior technician for Autism Advocacy and Intervention here in Vermont. And I am a board certified behavior analyst, but Sarah's really kind of taking the lead this week. So any of your questions you can float to her throughout the training. I do want to remind everybody that this training is being recorded and will be posted on the Autism Advocacy and Intervention website. So please, if you have questions or would like to make comments, keep in mind that it is going to be posted publicly and don't use any identifying information about any of the kids.
Right, just to recap, I have 3 kids. I homeschool, found some resources and some tricks that I'd like to share. And so I would like to start with the learning styles. No matter what age you have, each child has a specific way they learn. Many students use more than one learning style, but at least one of these styles work best for them to understand and remember the information you're teaching them. The 3 main ones is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, so seeing, hearing, and touching. When you connect the senses with what you're teaching, it helps with the child to understand it better, and there are different ways to be able to do that, and I will discuss that throughout this training. With simple environmental and academic educational manipulation, changing a few things up, you can find out what your learning style is for the child you're working with. And finding that out is that you can do simple ones. I'll show you different techniques that I've done, and just trial and error, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Choosing a schedule for what works best for your family. So you could do, each child has a certain day that you focus on. So Mondays could be one child if you have multiple children. Another day could be focusing on that child. Another one you could do is having a specific subject for a specific day. So if having more than one subject a day kind of seems overwhelming for the children or for you, having maybe math on Monday. So all the children involved are doing their math on Mondays, world history on Wednesdays, and science on Saturdays, just for examples of how you can do that. Next. So an example of creating these styles. You can implement all 3 and see what your child enjoys. It's kind of sometimes hard to see what their style is at first, but if they're really styles with a program that a lot of schools have used and a lot of homeschool families is handwriting without tears. I really love this program because they have different things to teach a concept. So if you're teaching how to write letters or even recognizing letters, the problem is some kids, you can't just write an A and say this is an A. Some kids have to form it with the wood blocks that are included in this curriculum. They also have CDs where you are dancing and moving. I think you skipped over one.
Go back one?
Yep.
There you go.
Okay, so for the visual learner, seeing the numbers on the lines on the left, there's a paper where it shows you 1, 2, 3, which steps to take. Someone with a visual learner and an adult modeling how to write them, that might be just enough for what they need. If a child needs a little bit more, the Handwriting Without Tears has CDs with songs and movements to help build on pre-writing and writing skills. They also have where you start the letter. They have special things on how you start at the top of a paper. So it shows and it gives you a song to remember. So if you're trying to remind them of the rules on how to start the letter or what to do, you could say big line, little curve, magic C. It's just simple things like that that can you can reiterate once, they've heard the songs and you've practiced. With the kinesthetic, touching the wood blocks and actually forming with the lines and the curves, they can manipulate that, and they can see how those are formed before you give them a piece of paper and have them write it. So I like to do is teaching the hands before teaching the mind. And I feel like as soon as you teach the hands of a child, it's absorbed more because they're learning and they're discovering on their own. Next slide. If you have an older child, another example is American history. If you're trying to teach a subject in American history, a visual learner, you can do YouTube videos. 3 great ones that I've come across to subscribe to is Homeschool Pop, Crash Course, or Simple History. Those are all on YouTube. You can also, for an auditory style learner, you could do music songs about history events. I mean, we all, hear Christopher Columbus. We hear that song, in the back of our head. Audio books, podcasts, anything for them just to sit and listen to get them involved in the histories. So kinesthetic, you can go on field trips once things open back up. But a great thing that I do is you can go on Amazon or different places and buy artifacts to have them sent to the house the kids can touch and feel. If you can't do that, you could do virtual goggles to visit different places around the world. So Google has one where it's a cardboard that you fold together and you put your phone in it and you download different virtual reality places. You could go to Egypt and see the pyramids and zoom up close and walk around a rainforest, if that's what you're learning about. Having the child be there, virtual reality, is kind of a really good connector piece for them to see this is really what it looks like. This is what the terrain looks like. And if any of those you can't do for financial purposes, Google Maps, if you go on to the satellite mode, you can go anywhere and you can zoom right in. You can find out, what your house looked like, where you used to live. And that's a great, connecting piece to be able to teach from the book and then connect those different subjects with different ways of how they learn. Next one. This is a school day schedule that I use at my house, and this is a brief summary of our day, and I will break it up a little bit more for the other slides. So breakfast, brush your teeth, make your bed, school time for 30 minutes. This is when we do folder work. The next slide, I'll show you what's in that folder. I really recommend for any preschool kid having these folders. They're really beneficial. Outside, unstructured, where they can play and not really have too much of, the adult manipulation at that point. Snack time, audiobook, read for an hour. At this time, you can do an audiobook on what you're learning. Or Audio Kids right now is having free audiobooks. Then we go back outside. We do forest school. So if we had trouble in the beginning of the morning for any reason, we continue what we were learning about outside just to kind of connect and see if it could be indoors where they just weren't focusing. Lunchtime, continue with the audiobook. Then they do a chore, which rotates. Free time, child's choice if the chore is done. So if this free time is something they want a special movie, if the chore is not done, then they need to choose something, that's not as desirable. And then movie, bath, and bedtime. Now on the right is the child's name and then just one word to remind them of their 5 goals a day that they need to complete to be able to stay up later and get a special snack for dessert. Next slide. This is the folder. So every child in preschool, if now that we're home a lot, if you're bringing your kids to grandma's house, they can bring this folder with them. They can do it in the car. They can do it when you go to the park again. So this is what I call the busy folder, the morning folder. You have your child's name where they can practice writing their name. And the material I used is plastic cover sheets. So that way they can write with dry erase marker and then erase it for the next day. So it's repetition, which is really important for this age group. And then changing out the pages once the skills are mastered. So it's always new things, and it's something for them that they can independently do. Once you've gone through it a few times, they can, practice tracing things and writing things, having blank pieces of paper. Once they've practiced tracing, they can copy. So this is really, really nice to have, especially because you can keep adding to it.
Sarah, I just want to add that one of the things I really love about this folder, and that you're sharing things that you actually use with your family, is this kind of demonstrates just how easily you can create these materials for your kids. You don't need a lot of different materials. You don't need to spend a lot of money on different websites getting the same materials that they have at school. You can really adapt it month to month or week to week and really kind of just generate materials with the stuff that you have at home, and it's just as effective.
Exactly. And I have one for my 11-year-old. It's not so much a morning busy folder, it's more his homework. So certain things like his multiplication or division, decimals, so that he'll have certain pages where he has to do them, and then I switch them out once a week, so that way it's repetition and I keep counting how many he got right and see if there's a progression.
That's great.
Next page. All right, so a teaching example. This one I really like doing with my daughter. The Dr. Seuss book, or Theo, is In a People House. So it's really funny. The cat or the mouse and the bird, they're running around the house looking at the different items. So when I would teach this to my daughter, I would have a few things that I would do prior to teaching. I would print out a coloring page that could do with Dr. Seuss, or it could be a house. It could be items that you found in the house for them to color. And then a list of items, and having two lists, the same items. One of them, you're going to be cutting out the words and making sure they're quite big, so that way they can really see the words. And the steps to it was you would read the book. You would hand the child the coloring page during the book or after, depending on if they're really involved in the book. I would wait until after you're done reading the book to hand them the coloring. But if they're not really seeming to focus, hand them the coloring page to kind of keep their body still while they're still listening. Then after they're done coloring, you would hand out the cutout words, and you would ask the child to look at the first letter of the word, and you would have them point to it and touch the first letter. And then you would ask the child to say the first sound that they see for that letter. You can assist them if needed. And then you would ask the child to find another word with the same letter sound and to group them together. So all the F's together, all the P's together. You would continue with all the words until they're all in the groups. And then you would ask the child what group has more words. Ask what group has less words. You would use this time to start a conversation with them about what items are found in their house, in their home. And then after they listed a few items that are in their home, then you would hand them a list and assist them in reading and searching your home for the items to kind of close the teaching. And you're focusing on a lot of different things. The goals for this lesson is teaching items in the house, so different vocab that they may not have known. Teaching and practicing letters, letter sounds, grouping, math vocab. There's a lot of different things that just one book you can manipulate to having a coloring page and then using those words to help with anything. So if they have sight words, you can have them point to all their sight words, have a list of them on the side of the book, so they're interacting and they're finding their words that they need to practice on. So depending on what skill your child is needing to practice, you can incorporate that into a book. So you could go into your library, but until the library opens, into your house and find any book and kind of go by these steps, and any book you can manipulate for this to be able to get their skills met. More than one skill at a time, too. Next page. All right, it's all fun and games. So having a hard time learning a new concept, make it a game. This is very important for young kids. They don't know that they're learning sometimes when they're just playing games and having fun. So some examples that I do is if they're difficulty adding or subtracting, using Uno cards or items found anywhere indoors around rock, sticks, cereal, beans, anything they can line up and count. You can separate them and then add and subtract. Baking's another good one. So when you're baking, if a child baked the cookies or brownies the same time, change it up a little bit. Ask them how many 1/4 of a cups make a cup, or how many half a cups make 2 cups. So manipulating, how they measure, you can be writing it down and adding and subtracting that way as well. So also another great resource I found is if your children are not into reading or they're bored with all the books we've had, you've read them 100 times, check out Storyline online. The books read there are by famous people, and some of the pictures turn animated, and some of the sounds from the book are animated. So if they say there's a knock at the door, you might hear the knock. And it's really, really awesome for young kids because some of their favorite books are right there, and they see a little change. They hear the sounds that the animal, the dog barks, and they hear the dog barking. It incorporates that auditory where sometimes, if they have the book read to them so many times, they know what's coming. Then they hear that dog bark, and it's like a whole new experience for them. And I've seen it, and I've used this with so many children, and it's such an important aspect to get the kids still involved with reading if they've chosen not to, or you're just trying to change it up a little bit. Next one. Rewards. So these are the 2 rewards that I use for my children, 2 of my children. Now, my big thing is that they have a lot of schoolwork to do in a week. They have a lot of different lessons they do, and rewarding them every time would get expensive, and who has that many rewards and that many stickers? So what I do is I print out these things from Etsy.com, and you can put the child's name on it. You can characterize it to what they like. We use these charts to track the progress. So what I do is for each lesson or day completed, they get 1 check mark. After all the circles are checked, they get all their check marks. They get a special treat that is chosen by the child. In the summertime, almost always it's an ice cream sundae with all the fixings or a special movie night, but they know what they're working for. So every time they get that check mark, it may not be like something they can hold or touch, but they feel accomplished. They're really excited. They wake up, and before they even start school sometimes, they go and they count, okay, I need 4 more before I make it. It gives them that encouragement, but it also helps so that way you're not having to physically give them something or reward them every time they do what is needed. It shows them that you acknowledge that they're doing the right thing and that they're on the right path and that they're working towards something later. Giving a focused power is also what I use. It kind of sounds silly, but giving a child a small piece of gum or like a dum-dum pop to help stay focused. So halfway through, if they just don't seem into it, I'll try to give them a piece of gum to see if it keeps going. If I really don't think that they're into whatever we're doing, we might just take a break and not use it. But anytime I give them gum or a dum-dum, I always make it kind of a fun thing, like, oh, it looks like you lost focus. It looks like you need more focus power. And then I would give them a piece of gum or a dum-dum, which would, small pop, in 5 minutes it's gone. And then they can get back to work. And sometimes I don't. So it's not, they know not to, slack off, and they're like, oh, I'll get a piece of gum. Because sometimes I'm like, all right, it looks like we need a break. So I use it, discretionary, depending on how I feel the child might need a little boost or is done. Because every child's different when it comes to attention span. And every day is different too.
And Sarah, just connecting this back to some concepts that we've gone over in previous weeks,
Yeah.
using reward charts are kind of like a token reinforcement system. So once you've delivered that first reward at the end of the chart, the child's learned that this works. And so each of those check marks in themselves become reinforcing. So it's a really, really great way to keep kids on track. And I think that it's great that you've found a way to reinforce your kids for staying on track throughout, but not have to give them something along the way all the time. And also just with your focus power piece, I think that is so genius because it allows you to kind of keep them on track. They can have that focus power item while they're still working, and it kind of does provide that reward in the moment if they're starting to get off track a little bit. It provides the reward for getting back on track and staying focused. So I think it's a really smart intervention.
And one more thing I would like to add about these is the first time that you go and implement these rewards, the biggest thing I would like to stress is to make sure that it's realistic and that they get to the prize quickly for the first time. Because if it takes 3 weeks for them to make it to the treasure chest, they're not really going to be looking at the big picture. I mean, it's almost like, oh, this is never going to happen. But if the first time they do it, it's kind of like, how about every day you get 2? Or let's see, how many you can do in one day, just to kind of get them to that reward as quick as possible. And then slowly step back and kind of say, okay, now every 2 times you'll get a check mark. Every 3 times you get a check mark, just to encourage it and to make sure they know that the reward is coming. So online resources, I have a ton, but I tried to narrow it down to the ones I use the most. So for writing, Handwriting Without Tears is a great one, like I've said. Another one, which is more of just textbook and teacher resource book, and it tells you step by step how to teach, is All About Reading. And they also have another one, All About Spelling. And that one's really, really good because it's a lot of games or manipulation with certain pictures or certain words. So there are hand activities for that. Some social studies, Little Passports. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of that, but it's a package program that you pay a monthly subscription, and each month you get a different package from a different place, and they have different activities, reading material, online connections. So there's different programs depending on the age. They have some for preschool all the way up to middle school, depending on what they're learning. For math, there is math manipulatives everywhere. You can buy Unix fixed cubes, base 10 blocks, or you can get rocks, sticks, cereal beads. It's everywhere. It's just as long as it's the same size and the same thing, so that way they can focus on just counting and not measuring, because measuring is a completely different concept if you're just counting. For science, there's orientaltrading.com. They have all the subjects to buy the materials that you need for any science that you would want to teach them. That's a great resource. Another one is abcmouse.com. That is $10 a month or $80 a year. It includes virtual reality preschool, kindergarten classes with fish tanks and pets. This is such a good program for young kids because it's self-guided. They can go and click on what they're interested in. And just sitting back and watching what they do, it really shows what they're interested in. And maybe you can take that and connect it to something different. Find a book. If your child's going to the aquarium every single time they log on, they like fish. Start printing pages that include fish to incorporate what they're learning. Other things is they have a pet shop. They can have their own pet. They have to feed and water and bathe the pet, or the pet gets sad. It teaches responsibility, but with not a life at hand. So that's a really good one because there's so many different pets that they can choose from, like normal house pets, dog, cat, lizard, bird, turtle. So depending on what they're into, and then it teaches them about what that animal needs to survive, because it does change what they eat, what they drink, and how they're being bathed. They can also go to the library. They can go to the aquarium, a farm. They can click on different farm animals, and it tells them about the animal. They can do clothing. They can change their clothing to characterize their little avatar to make them look like themselves. They have their own bedroom on abcmouse.com where they can have furniture. They can decorate their room. They can visit a zoo. They can go and visit different animals. So it's endless. And like I said, it's self-guided. So they can click and they can go through it, and you just see what they're into and what they like. And the program I use for my children for the full curriculum, all the subjects, is timeforlearning.com. It is a step-by-step schedule creator. Each lesson has quizzes. Each chapter has tests. The best thing I love about this is that if you feel like your child is great at fractions, go right to the chapter test and give them the test. If they did great, then you can skip all the lessons. If they didn't do that great, you can go back and choose the lessons that you feel they need. That's a big one because my oldest son, he takes tests more than any of the lessons, and he just flies through it. And there's so many different things that would honestly be wasting our time. If he's already mastered and got 100% on the test, there's no point for him to do all 6 lessons. Another great resource from Time for Learning is there's printouts for certain lessons. So if you don't want that 100% computer-based program, you can print out papers for them to do for homework or just busy work to connect what they're learning on the computer. You can skip ahead or complete each assignment. There's no, they give you all the assignments all at once. There's no, you have to complete this to be able to get the next assignment. You could have your child in kindergarten math, but first grade science. So that's one really good thing about this too, is that they don't hold you back on certain subjects and certain grades. You can excel at your own rate. And then at the end of each year, everybody has the portfolios or the folders that they're trying to keep for their kids. You can go on here and print out the attendance and their scores on everything they've ever done. So that is a big one for a lot of new homeschool families that are learning. You need to have a portfolio if you plan on homeschooling. If you are just using the school for the assignments, then you still need that portfolio. It's really, really good to keep all that information, so that way you can even show the teachers this is how many times he's logged on. It also shows you how long they spend on each one. So it can say that he spent 5 minutes on this lesson, but 20 minutes on this lesson. And really looking at their scores and how long they're on certain subjects could tell you that they're having trouble in certain aspects. So that's why I highly recommend Time for Learning. And it's not just for homeschool. They also do summer programs, just anything. If your child's really struggling with just math, you can do just math on it. And any questions?
I just want to point out that with parents who are homeschooling right now just through the school closures, that they might not need to keep like a full portfolio, though it is a really good idea to keep track of what you're teaching the kids and what, make sure that assignments that or projects that have been sent home from school are completed and kept somewhere. So that might not be something that's required for, a Head Start family who's homeschooling or something like that. And one of the other things that, I love that you have all of these resources here. I think it's so cool. But the other thing that I do often, when I'm developing stuff assignments or things for kids to work on in our clinic is I'll look at resources like this and see what they're doing, but then not pay for the subscription and create my own materials. It's a little bit more time intensive, but it does, for people who are looking at trying to find things for their kids while they're at home, there's a lot that you can do just by finding some inspiration online and taking a little bit of extra time to create those materials or to try to do something that's somewhat similar with their child.
Definitely.
So, Sarah, I had a question, or, well, maybe more of a comment. I had heard that with the pandemic and things that places like abcmouse.com were offering free access and things to all of these families to help support the needs at home. So that could be a great resource, especially for our kindergarten, readiness with our preschool kids, kind of missing the end of the school year within the preschool classroom, but the parent really wanting to be able to make sure that they're getting something more to have them ready for the fall. And then I had another question. Oh, I just love the idea that on the timeforlearning.com, if you had a child who maybe has had a very frustrating year in a particular subject, you can take time right now, if their homework load isn't too heavy, or maybe during the summer months a little bit, in helping them to kind of tune up that subject so that maybe they'll be a little further ahead and not be so frustrated when they're in that public environment within their school classroom with their peers. So, thank you.
Yeah, I really like the time for learning and the preschool and kindergarten. I've completed the preschool with all three of my kids, and I absolutely love how there's special characters that become their family and their friends, and they really encourage them. They have special signs and say, "Great job, good job." There's a lot of verbal encouragement. There's different games that they get to save a space astronaut, or so it's not so much teaching for them. It's them just playing around, and they're learning so much while they're doing it.
Is that one free? Can I ask? The Time for Learning?
It is not.
Okay, all right. Just because the Social Studies, Little Passports, and ABC Mouse listed subscription prices, I wasn't sure whether that meant that Time for Learning was free. Do you know whether Handwriting Without Tears or All About Reading Spelling?
Those are that you have to, you go on the website and there's different things that you can choose. So for the Handwriting Without Tears, if you want, you could just buy the Etch-a-Sketch where they draw on the erased Etch-a-Sketch, or you could buy just the wood blocks. You could buy the entire package. You can also buy teacher resources where it says for 5 students everything you'll need. So
that's not a software program. Gotcha.
And like I was saying before, a lot of these programs, you can, with a little bit of time searching on Google, you can get some inspiration. And for people who are not looking to have to buy new materials at this time, you can definitely see what these programs are doing and, create different materials. Like even something like the blocks that that Handwriting Without Tears sells, that's something that you could print out, print out letters and laminate them and still be putting those pieces together. Or, there are ways to kind of modify some of the physical materials to make it so that it doesn't have a price tag associated with it. I do think it's great that you pointed out that so many of these are offering free subscriptions right now. I mean, there's so much out there for free right now during this shutdown that I think families who are looking for educational activities for their kids, but really not wanting the price tag associated with the educational programs that are out there, they have a lot of options that are short term right now, and that they could access for free.
I just have a quick question. This is Kelly. I'm in North Troy. I just curious, with the ABC mouse, if that's purchased for $80 a year or the $10 a month, does it, as a teacher, then does that include my classroom? So
Yes.
It does. Okay, so that's something we could get, and then all my parents and families would have access for free once we paid for it.
I think you actually get a discount for, I would contact abcmouse.com and ask them, but I think that certain schools have a discount.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and another, just going back to what Tiffany said about the handwriting without tears. So we have not purchased the curriculum. I do think it is at some of the Head Starts. My center just does not have it, but we have gotten information, like we've pulled sources and information from some of our special educators who come in. So we have these on the light table, these letter pieces that we purchased. They were not expensive at all, but they're the same shapes and concepts as the wooden ones from Handwriting Without Tears. So we use those, and it works awesome, and they were much cheaper. We just purchased those from like Amazon, and we use them on the light table. So that works really well.
You know, we use Handwriting Without Tears in Albany. That's where I am from, Deborah Ann. And my husband actually made an extra set of the wooden shapes.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
awesome.
also heard one of my families was using the ABC mouse, and she liked it, but then she had to buy it. It was only on for a month free for her. But she found another one called Learning with Homer. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. And then the other one was ABC Ya. Those are the two that she said she found also that she really liked.
There are really so many open resources out there right now. And I really think that it is really awesome that you're able to access all of these resources at this time. And I think, you know, even the idea of just making like an extra set of blocks to do Handwriting Without Tears, or coming up with some different materials to be able to follow that kind of curriculum is, it's a really creative way to continue that through the school year, or, you know, or through the summer, or whenever it may be. So I guess that kind of wraps up the training piece. Just kind of going over our typical sort of end of the training piece. We will post the trainings to YouTube. I'm going to try to cut out the spot where the phone call happened. Sorry about that, guys. And you can find them on Autism Advocacy and Intervention's YouTube. You can also find it on our website. And AAI is still open and accepting referrals for direct services, and individuals who are served in the Northeast Kingdom Head Start under our contract are able to access some ongoing parent training or one-on-one services at this time through Head Start and through us as well. And that is my email address. If anybody has questions about this training, I can connect you with Sarah directly if you want to ask some questions too. And definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you all for coming, and we will be here again next week and through the end of the Head Start school year.